Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Let's just take a second to think about the central tension of modern business. As consumers, we kind of want it all, right? We want the exact customized product we desire, we want it delivered exactly when we ask for it, and obviously, we want it at the lowest possible price. Well, behind the scenes, making that happen requires this incredibly delicate, constantly shifting dance. Today, we're unpacking the 5 major challenges companies face when trying to build and maintain the perfect supply chain.
Okay, let's dive right into this agenda. Today we're covering 5 main sections. 1. The Supply Chain Balancing Act. 2. Product lifespans and variety. 3. Globalization and market uncertainty. 4. Fragmentation and tech shifts. And 5. The drive for sustainability.
Section 1. The Supply Chain Balancing Act. Finding the sweet spot.
So, the foundational goal here is something called strategic fit. Essentially, strategic fit is a company's ability to find a balance between responsiveness and efficiency that best matches the needs of its target customers. Achieving this specific fit is absolutely crucial if a company wants to grow its supply chain surplus, which, by the way, is just the total value generated by the chain. But here's the catch. Finding that sweet spot is one thing. Actually maintaining it in today's unpredictable world is becoming incredibly difficult.
To really picture this, imagine a giant physical scale. On one side, you have responsiveness. That's the ability to handle new, highly customized, or just totally unpredictable demands. On the other side, you've got efficiency, the ability to keep costs incredibly low. The thing is, you literally cannot maximize both perfectly at the same time. You have to balance them. And as we're going to see, every single challenge we discuss next acts like a heavy weight that threatens to completely topple this scale.
Section 2. Product lifespans and variety. The trap of too many choices. If you look around today, you'll notice a massive explosion of product variety, but it's paired with shrinking product life cycles. This massively increases uncertainty. To survive this, firms have to map out a heavily tailored supply chain. For unpredictable, brand new products and low-volume items, they absolutely need highly responsive solutions. But for their successful, stable, high-volume products, they need incredibly low-cost, efficient solutions. Managing both of those extremes at the exact same time is a huge logistical headache. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a giant puzzle that's constantly changing shape. Now, some companies manage to sidestep this trap entirely. Apple is a prime example of this. They intentionally limit their product variety, and, well, they've had massive success doing so. They don't make 100 different types of phones, right? They introduce a few new, highly anticipated products and have the absolute strict discipline to continually eliminate their older ones. This gives them the luxury of dealing almost exclusively with high-demand products, which makes it infinitely easier to design a perfectly aligned, highly efficient supply chain.
Section 3. Globalization and market uncertainty. Navigating the storm.
Let's trace back to the rapid-fire storm of uncertainty that global companies faced during the 2007 to 2008 financial period. Within just a single year, the market absolutely whiplashed. In November 2007, auto demand started dropping. By July 2008, crude oil peaked at over $145 a barrel. Then, in October 2008, U.S. auto sales just plummeted, and a month later in November, oil crashed all the way back down to under $50 a barrel. So think about that. How on earth do you plan an efficient supply chain when your core costs and customer demand fluctuate that violently?
The impact of these fluctuations was staggering. Just to put that into perspective, in October 2008, auto sales in the United States dropped by more than 30% compared to the previous year. 30%! But the pain wasn't distributed equally at all. The demand for larger vehicles and SUVs dried up incredibly fast, while the demand for smaller, fuel-efficient cars actually held much steadier.
And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between having a responsive supply chain and a rigid one. Take Honda, for example. They had built flexible plants. They could produce both CR-Vs and small cars on the exact same assembly line. So when that 2008 shock hit, they just adjusted the mix and kept operations strong. In stark contrast, their competitors who had built rigid plants dedicated entirely to large trucks and SUVs, well, they found themselves in deep trouble when that specific demand vanished overnight. For Honda, flexibility literally saved the day.
All right, Section 4. Fragmentation and tech shifts. The evolution of business.
Decades ago, companies were heavily vertically integrated, meaning they basically owned every single step of the process. Today, we're seeing a heavy trend toward fragmented ownership. Companies are shedding non-core functions to take advantage of outside expertise, which sounds great, but it creates massive coordination difficulties. When a supply chain is broken up among dozens of different owners, each with their own unique policies and interests, there's a very real risk that each stage is only going to work toward its local objectives rather than the overall profitability of the entire global chain. It's like having a rowing team where everyone is paddling to their own rhythm.
Let's look at how this builds in a real-world tech scenario with Dell's evolution. For over a decade, Dell completely dominated Step 1, highly customized PCs sold directly to customers, built in flexible facilities. But around 2005, the whole environment shifted. Customers started wanting standard laptops and honestly cared a lot less about customization. So Dell was forced to dramatically pivot. They moved to Step 2, standard laptops, then Step 3, selling through retail outlets, and finally, Step 4, increasingly outsourcing assembly to low-cost contract manufacturers. A strategy that used to be a massive strength suddenly became a weakness, requiring a total, ground-up supply chain overhaul.
And what happens if you just don't adjust your supply chain to shifting tech environments? Well, in the 1990s, Blockbuster was king, with dedicated physical stores packed to the brim with VHS tapes. But the environment changed to DVDs and digital streaming. Netflix adopted centralized distribution and streaming, while Redbox utilized low-cost vending machines. Blockbuster's fundamental inability to adjust its physical, rigid supply chain to this technological transformation, it ultimately resulted in its bankruptcy in 2010. They literally couldn't adapt fast enough.
Which brings us to Section 5, the drive for sustainability, a new strategic mandate. A lot of times, this shift towards sustainability is driven by strict external forces, massive regulatory frameworks, like the European Union's WEE directive regarding electrical waste and their RoHS directive restricting hazardous substances, have fundamentally forced manufacturers to rethink their materials. Cell phone companies, for example, couldn't just keep running their old supply chains. They legally had to redesign their products and completely overhaul their sourcing strategies just to comply with these rigorous standards.
But it's not always just about government regulation. For a company like Starbucks, sustainability is an absolutely essential business strategy. They recognized early on that a supply failure of high-quality coffee due to environmental degradation would completely cripple their ability to grow. So they developed incredibly strict sourcing guidelines to ensure environmental and social performance at every single local stage of their supply chain. It's not just a PR move for them, it's an operational necessity to protect their future inventory.
So what does this all mean for us? Well, the crucial takeaway here is that behind literally every item you purchase is a complex, constantly threatened balancing act. I want to leave you with a question to think about. Picture a company you buy from every single day. Look at your smartphone, your morning coffee, your car. How do they balance their efficiency to keep your price low with the responsiveness required to give you exactly what you want right when you want it? Next time you make a purchase, just think about the intricate global dance happening right behind the scenes to put that item in your hand. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning how the world around you actually works.